Good afternoon, my name is Michelle Rueda, and I will be reviewing my fair use lesson based off the Assure model called You Be the Judge. So this lesson was put together to support students' comprehension of copyright and fair use. So a quick synopsis of the lesson. Students will pair up and choose one of the provided fair use scenarios. Then using the fair use acronym, never undercut the author's intent, from our copyright presentation, students will analyze their scenario and decide why or why not it follows fair use guidelines. As students analyze, they are to color code the example to match their fair use guidelines, just like I did in my presentation. Once students have finished analyzing the sample, they will use their electronic devices and the provided Flipgrid code to create a quick 2-minute judgment video. In the video, the pair will both explain if their scenario falls under fair use guidelines or not. Their conclusion must be supported by the textual evidence they found in their scenario. Students will be asked to be as creative or theatrical as they would like. Once students have completed their Flipgrid video, they will be asked to respond to another pair's Flipgrid and explain why or why not they agree with their judgment of the scenario using evidence that they heard. So the general characteristics of the class as a whole, this is a lesson for 9th graders, ages ranging from 14 to 15 years of age. The makeup of the group is predominantly Hispanic, medium to low income students. The class is primarily female with a handful of males. For the most part, students are well behaved and attentive. The competencies or the prerequisites they should have before the instruction can commence: they should be able to read at a 7th grade level or above, be able to work collaboratively with other students, be able to break down and dissect a passage of information, as well as create and save a Flipgrid video. As far as the learning differences and needs of the students, this is a social media genre of kids, basically. So they thrive when they're using social media platforms to do an assignment, especially if it has to do with video and editing. They love seeing themselves on screen. And this will also give them the room to collaborate with peers, check for understanding, because they have to make a judgment based on the evidence they find, or refute somebody's answer based on the evidence they see as well. And again, this helps because they usually shy away from asking the teacher if they're right or wrong, and by this way, it's full collaboration amongst peers. As for the objectives, this lesson will be focusing on Common Core English Standard 910.1. Students will write arguments to support claims and an analysis of substantial topics or texts using valid reasoning and relevant and sufficient evidence. So basically, pulling the evidence from their scenario to justify their claim if the example followed fair use guidelines or not. As far as their International Society for Technology standard, students demonstrate creative thinking, construct knowledge, and develop innovative products and processes using technology. In addition, communicate information, ideas effectively to multiple audiences using media formats. So again, they're creating their Flipgrid. They can be as creative as they want. In addition, they are communicating effectively to peers and also commenting in response if their work was correct or not. Now again, the learning objective, the learner will analyze scenarios using the fair use acronym to create a Flipgrid video determining if the example followed fair use guidelines or not using textual evidence. So following the ABCD format, A for audience, the learner will. As far as behavior, they were going to be analyzing these scenarios. The condition, they're going to be using the fair use acronym, never undercut the author's intent, which they heard about in the copyright presentation. And then the degree to which they're doing this, they're going to create a Flipgrid video determining if the example followed fair use guidelines or not using textual evidence. As for the strategies and resources that are essential to this lesson, this is a completely student-centered activity. Number one, they're collaborating with a partner to analyze the scenario using the fair use acronym. So there's somebody there to help them out and kind of navigate through the waters. If they're not too sure, they can depend on that person to help them. Two, they're using the evidence from the scenario to create and edit a short Flipgrid video. And then three, once they're done, they're going to evaluate another group's Flipgrid video by responding on whether that group is correct or incorrect in their scenario claims of fair use. So again, they're having to not only make a judgment, but also look at somebody else's work and visit the acronym again. Is it fair use or is it not? So they're getting that added practice. Rationales for each selection. Again, for Flipgrid, using Flipgrid and the activities are aligning to the learning objectives of them analyzing and being creative. The interest level, as mentioned before, the students can edit the videos. They can include music in it, graphics. They can reflect creativeness and personality. Age appropriateness, the language is appropriate for 9th grade level. The ease of use, this is pretty much their digital natives. So Flipgrid is user-friendly and it's very similar to popular social media apps they already use daily. As for utilizing the materials, Flipgrid was previewed and tried to troubleshoot any problems that may arise during the lesson, so I could attack it up front and help the kids move along effortlessly and easily. As far as preparing the resources, students are provided with a handout of the instructions that includes the tips for navigating Flipgrid, as well as a copy of the fair use acronym and examples. As for the environment, the lesson will take place in the library classroom. Markers, drawing paper, and iPads with internet capability will be available for any group that does not have an electronic device, as well as props from the theater department to add to the theatrics of the Flipgrid video. As far as preparing the learners, the learning objective and instructions will be reviewed before they even begin. In addition, a checklist to make sure they have completed all the components of the assignment, the rubric. Providing the learning experience. As a librarian, I would be continually monitoring, checking in to see if the groups needed any guidance, if they had any questions with the acronym, because again, this is a learning experience. We don't want to shy away and tell them, oh no, you're wrong. Kind of scaffolding with questioning and stuff like that to help them really get a solid foundation on what copyright and fair use is. Require learner responses. As far as mental engagement by the learners, students are going to analyze scenarios, gather textual evidence before they can progress to the Flipgrid video. And knowing that another group will also be reviewing their video will engage them to work collaboratively to get the best information possible. Engaging learners in practice of new knowledge or skills. Students are going to be practicing using their fair use acronym in order to understand fair use guidelines. So it helps them to be better prepared when they're out there on their own, through the internet, constructing projects and PowerPoints and so forth. Support learning with technology and media. Students will take what they learn and create Flipgrids to showcase their learning. So instead of a common, let's do a PowerPoint or let's do a paper, this is them actually illustrating something visual that they'll enjoy doing. Provide performance feedback prior to formal assessment. The students will evaluate other Flipgrid judgments and provide feedback to others' work so that they can adjust as needed before the actual formal assessment of their work. As far as the evaluation, before anything traditional or formative has even begun, keep in mind that the students are checking each other and answering to each other, so they're kind of checking each other, and this is going to give them an idea, are they on the right track or are they not? But as far as traditional and authentic assessments to determine if they achieve the standards and objective, a Google form could be used as a quick snapshot to gauge the grasp of the learning objectives and standards, or like I mentioned, the provided rubric. For example, identification of the fair use guidelines in the scenario, they were able to pick out the nature, the use, the amount, the intent. Could they correctly judge the scenario? Did it fall under fair use guidelines or not? Their Flipgrid video in general, did it show like they put effort or they're just kind of pulling teeth trying to get it done? The organization and appearance, was it pretty easy to understand? Were they just laughing, giggling, you really couldn't get anything out of it? And again, just some extra points if the requirements were made or not. As far as the instructional process and the impact of using technology and media, the use of the Flipgrid component allows students to develop their thinking in a medium that's most comfortable to them in this social media era. Again, they love TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. So this is just a nice progression and they'll feel comfortable and more engaged as they're going through it. And again, since I didn't run this actual activity, I guess I could say maybe break down the lesson over time, or in grouping, maybe go high-low partner. So, because you know what happens when two low academically children get together, not much is going to get done. And maybe with that high-low grouping, it won't be as threatening because they'll have insight and they'll be more driven to finish it off. Or if your numbers were a little bit more equal as far as gender, boy-girl, or boy-boy, girl-girl. But again, I think it's more about the mix of partners, which will really help this thrive. And again, that is my presentation of fair use following the Assure model. Thank you.